Hey everyone, it's Rusty for Garage Quest, and today we're going to do a combo review slash tutorial, and we're going to be talking about NOLZUR'S Marvelous Miniatures. This is D&D's new line of paint-it-yourself miniatures. They come pre-primed and ready to get going with some paint, so let's open it up and see what we can make. So we've got here two human barbarian miniatures. I've got an assortment of cheap craft paints and cheap brushes, and we're just going to go over the basics, the basic techniques that you're going to need to know how to paint your own miniatures up, and you start using them for your game. So let's get started. Alright, so here we are at the workbench, and we're looking at the packaging that you get with D&D's new NOLZUR'S Marvelous Miniatures. Most of them come with kind of generic class and race categorized little blister packs here. They come pre-primed with Vallejo paint, which is considered in the miniature painting world to be like one of the premium brands. So that's a nice touch. Also, you'll notice that the character player miniatures come usually in 2-packs. You can usually find a good choice to match the character that you're thinking of creating. So I picked this up at my local hobby store. I highly recommend that you find, if you are fortunate to have a hobby store close by, to find one and patronize them to keep them in business. A lot of the times they host RPG events and other miniature painting sessions and etc. that are enriching to the community in a way that online shops just don't really have the ability to be. So if you can spend your money locally, please do so. Also, these are fairly inexpensive. I think most of the places they cost $4.99. I did pay full price for this. This is in no way, shape, or form a sponsored promotion. In fact, I have used a couple of these, and although I do like the level of detail and the fact that they come in quite a variety of forms per class and race combination, I do think that they are a little bit small in scale and a little bit delicate, which leads to some bending of the plastic, which you'll see here shortly when I open it up. I think that compared to other miniature companies like Reaper, they are a little generic and lacking in individual personality. I personally like that a little bit more for selecting miniatures for player characters, but as far as just the overall level of quality, I really do like these, and I think they're really great value. All right, let's open this guy up. Let's get rid of all that. So it comes with bases. I think that these small discs are a little bit less than ideal, so I usually chuck them and put them on sturdier bases, the ones that have like a nice 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch lift. And as you can see, there's quite a lot of detail in there. I hope the camera's focusing in on that. Just looks great. Lots and lots of little details in there in the fur. And even the base is decorated. Lots of little pouches and accessories hanging off of the belt there. This looks like a female barbarian. And take a look at this male barbarian. Oh, dropped it. As you can see, it is a little delicate, and the swords are bent on both of them. The axe looks to be pretty well straight, but this one's a little bit. Well, anyway, sounds like someone's mowing their lawn outside, so yeah, let's start painting these. Before we jump into painting, I wanted to go ahead and give a quick, I don't know, just kind of a primer, pun intended, on the types of paints that I use. You can spend lots and lots and lots of money on very particular types of pigments, inks, washes, etc. For the most part, I try to use the cheapest possible brushes, paints, etc. for my hobby and crafting purposes. Mostly because I'd rather have a wide assortment of colors that I can accidentally use too much of. You know, you'll see later that I am probably going to be wasting a lot of paint. And before I get a bunch of comments in the, down below the video, I'm aware of this. It's just part of my process. That's why I buy the cheap paints. So in order to demonstrate all this, I'm going to be using literally the $1 craft paint that you can get at any craft store. In order to demonstrate the difference between painting on a light color and a dark color primer, I have gone ahead and re-primed one of them in very, very inexpensive black spray paint. You know the kind. It costs 99 cents per can and comes in gloss or matte. I chose the matte one. Be very, 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 very skimpy on the paint when you're, especially if you're painting over an already primed miniature. Just a little too much paint can cover up a lot of that detail that you paid for. So anyway, it's pretty straightforward. I'm just showing you the steps of the colors of paints that I'm using. This first step is just going to be blocking out the primary like background colors that we're going to start layering other colors on top of. I'm just going to use 3 different colors for that purpose, but you will notice on the black primed barbarian, I'm going to have to paint the brown over the part that I'm going to paint the yellow on first, because the yellow isn't really going to paint very well over the black primer. It needs a lighter color on underneath in order to prevent having to put dozens and dozens of coat on it. Anyway, you'll see what I mean. And yeah, so let's get to the first step. Okay, now that we're done blocking out all of the initial background colors, and I just used a wet brush technique on that. The brush is moist with water before I dip it into the paint. I get it really liquid so that it covers as smoothly and as evenly as possible. And you'll note that often I go back with an unloaded brush and wipe away excess until I get as thin an even coat as possible. And you'll end up having to touch up. There are different areas of the miniature that are harder to reach than others with different kinds of brushes. But you can be a little bit messy in this first couple of stages, as we're going to be cleaning things and little mistakes up as we go. Before we actually move on to starting with the dry brush detail technique to start separating these blocks of colors and adding the details, I'm actually going to shift gears onto the faces of the models and some of the harder to reach breast regions of these female barbarians, which I'm sure there's a lot of gamers out there that are participate in that debate of like, how realistic is it to go into battle with bikini armor. But anyway, the models look good, and the sculptors gave both ladies I'd say pretty bountiful cleavage, and maybe that gives you a charisma bonus, or helps stun your foes in battle, giving you a very slight advantage to sneak an attack in there. So anyway, let's go back to the workbench and start adding the detail to the faces so we can get that checked off the list. Okay, cool. Now that we've got the flesh color put in, all of those were actually really difficult to get to, which tends to be the case with any miniatures that have exposed flesh that are also wearing capes and armor, which is pretty much every miniature that has exposed flesh, except for maybe like the flesh golem or non-humanoid type creatures. Anyway, we're not going to have to touch that again, so that's good. We even were able to clean up the color blocks surrounding the flesh. So now we can go on to picking out the little detailed parts, like the little fur lining on the boots and on the gauntlets, putting color on the belt, a leathery color on the belt, and putting the initial black coat down on the weaponry, and cleaning up the base of the model so that we can do some kind of a terrain painting when we're finished with the model itself. This is pretty much the last time we're going to be doing any wet brushing, and even with this, we're using substantially less paint than in the previous steps. From here on out, it's mostly just detail work and very, very precise amounts of paint for a single stroke to just add those little color details to the thing. It's really going to make everything come together, especially when we add the wash in the last step. So anyway, let's get back to the workbench. Okay, now that we have all of the details picked out on our figure, we can move on to dry brushing to add some highlights to all of this, as well as the metallic colors to the weapons and armor. From here on out, it's pretty much just technique based. You don't have to be a good artist. It's just putting a very, very small amount of paint on your brush and really wiping it until it's like basically just dusting the surface of your minifig with you know, just the hint of color. And you know, it's not going to seem like you're doing much at first, but after a couple of strokes, a couple of passes with the brush, you're really going to start to bring out the highlights of all of the detail that the sculptor put into this little miniature. So let's get started. All right, we've got The extra little highlights done with our dry brush technique. I don't think it's showing up on camera quite as well as it would in real life. But once we get the wash applied, you'll see a lot of detail start to pop out of this. Washes are one thing that I actually do go ahead and spend money on. Basically, you just load a brush with it and just dab it onto the miniature. I try to use lighter colors of wash for lighter colored areas of paint, and darker washes for things like weapons and armor. Also, once I'm done with the washes, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of patch of snow, because I've decided that by the wolf fur pelts that these barbarian ladies are wearing, that they are from more of an Arctic climate. Once the washes have dried, we're going to give them a really quick spray with a matte finish sealer, acrylic sealer, and then glue them onto some bases, and they're ready for gameplay. Alright, so here we are with our best finished mini that's pretty much ready to play. I just need to glue it onto a base. You'll notice that in the first one I was painting, I did not dilute the lighter colored washes, and that ended up causing it to be a little bit muddy. So I made sure to really water it down before applying it to this, and I'm much happier with the results. The low lights in the hair and in the flesh tone really bring a lot of detail out, and as well as the yellow tint kind of providing a little bit of making the armor and the little fur bikini that she's wearing, or fur slightly bikini-ish barbarian suit. Anyway, I'm probably rambling here. Overall, this has been a really fun painting process. There's, like I said, lots of really nice detail that the sculptor included in this miniature for me to paint and just kind of bring out. I will admit that I was a little handicapped painting behind the camera, because I normally really get up close with my paintbrush, and sometimes so close I have to take my glasses off. But anyway, I think it turned out really good, considering that I mainly just really roughly applied the blocks of paint and then picked down a little bit of detail, dry brushed and washed. And with that much effort, it actually turns out more detailed than the pre-bought or the pre-painted miniatures that you can get, and actually for a much lower price point. So overall, I think that it's a really good choice if you're looking for a fun and inexpensive way to get into adding miniatures to your D&D campaigns. I hope you enjoyed watching this review/tutorial on how to paint miniatures. If you want to see more content like this, go ahead and let us know in the comments below. And until then, this is Rusty wishing you happy crafting. Garage Quest out.